All right, everybody, welcome in. I think that we need to sit down, deliver a reminder here. Consume everything with caution because it seems that such care sometimes is completely disregarded, especially by those who are aggregating and trying to get a bunch of clicks. I'm not going to actually share the post in question because I think that the post in question wasn't even reporting the Brock Purdy negotiation floor. Feels like the post in question was just spitballing $45 million. I mean, the way that it was worded, 49ers playing hardball with Purdy is very on brand. Starting your offers at $45 million a year is something. $45 million a year is a number that people have tossed around over the course of the couple months, just in speculative circles. So just because a tweet takes some of that speculation and rebroadcasts it in a way that's not even framed as a report doesn't mean that the 49ers are starting negotiations at $45 million per year. That's not the report. A report, if we're going to be reading something correctly and processing information online correctly, it would say source, the 49ers initial offer to Brock Purdy is for $45 million a year. So I'm sure that those of you watching right now have seen what I'm talking about. Every single 49ers blog site, every single show, like anybody who's making a YouTube show based on this as some kind of gospel fact. Oh, I have a window into negotiations. It was an offhand tweet. Anybody who's making a show based on this without questioning it the way that we are right now, without saying, hey, wait, this is just online chatter. You should be really careful of consuming information from that place. So I just think that in general, over the course of however long it takes for this Brock Purdy contract to be finalized, there is going to be so much of this, so many little breadcrumbs that people overreact to. And if you're not ready to consume properly, and I mean, the internet is a minefield now for this kind of stuff, but if you aren't ready to consume this stuff properly, you're going to go crazy over the course of the next however long this is going to be. What I can tell you, and this is from, actual reputable reporting and chatter coming from, guys like Adam Schefter today, he said this was fascinating to me. He had a spot on the Pat McAfee show, and he said that the 49ers, in the context of the Brock Purdy deal, are dealing with some cap issues. And then he very quickly corrected himself and said cash issues. This is the one intriguing piece of information that has come out regarding the 49ers financial situation and the Brock Purdy contract situation today. It's not the $45 million number. It is what Adam Schefter said and then how he corrected himself. And there's been reputable reporting. And I can tell you for a fact that there have been John Lynch press conference quotes that have invoked cash issues. Like, as a quote, he has literally talked about cash issues more often than he's ever talked about cash issues before. And cap issues and cash issues are not the same thing. That's all obviously going to tie into this negotiation with Brock Purdy, because it's going to take both cap maneuvering and cash spending to get it done. And cash spending can solve cap issues, but it doesn't work the other way around. So if the 49ers really are in cash spend issue mode, I know that they're trying to rein back the spending because they've been spending a lot of money recently, but if they're in some kind of cash saving mode that goes beyond cost efficiency, because I think preaching cost efficiency is good at any time. Even if you could throw money at every single problem, you're going to have more success if you could spend the money efficiently. But if their cash issues go beyond just cost efficiency, then yes, that will complicate this Brock Purdy contract negotiation. But as you can tell, I mean, we're just barely scratching the surface of actually relevant and useful information here. And taking every single tweet and reading into it as if it's some kind of big revelation about this contract negotiation is just not it. That's just not going to get anybody anywhere. The one thing, though, that we need to keep our eyes on is the cap issues versus cash issues discussion in this entire saga. And it first really jumped out at us at the NFL Combine a week ago when John Lynch multiple times talked about cash spend, talked about the 49ers needing to rein that back, talked about it in the context of a question that he was answering about Brandon Ayuk and the 49ers maybe being interested in trading him. He kind of sidestepped the question and just started talking about cash spend, mentioned cash spend a couple more times. And then everything was delivered via the overarching context of this contract that Brock Purdy and the 49ers are supposedly negotiating. That's Kyle Strong and his Brock Purdy's agent. According to John Lynch, the negotiations started at probably around the time of the NFL Combine, but he said that they're still in their infancy. He did also say that the 49ers have said their opening presentation and that Brock Purdy's side said their opening presentation. So generally that means a number comes in from one side, and it's not just one number. It's not just APY. It's going to be fully guaranteed money. And then a number comes in from the other side, APY, fully guaranteed money. The length of the deal, obviously very significant as well. So that, adds to this. When you see just a little dribble of information and it's just APY, what is that really telling you? I mean, I wrote the entire Brock Purdy contract projection up on the San Francisco Standard. This is already January 15th. Man, this is going to be 2 months ago. So it's been a while since I wrote this projection. And one of the main points here was, this is not here. Here's the actual contract projection. But one of the main points was we're not just looking at APY. The top APY list is right here. Dak Prescott's at the very top at $60 million per year. Tua Tagovailoa is number 5 at $53.1 million. But we're going to be probably looking at fully guaranteed money to gauge the true strength of the contract. And then we're going to be looking at the structure to see how it's going to fit within the cap situation for the 49ers. But at the time, on January 15th, we hadn't gotten the signals yet from the 49ers that we should also be looking at the cash spend situation. Now, it could be that the 49ers right now, it could just be a big bluff on their part. They're talking a lot about cash spend heading into the Purdy negotiation so that they, you put on a front of we're a little bit limited here. We don't want to put this much money into this particular area of the team, even though it's the most important area of the team, the quarterback position. So you can start with a lower floor in negotiations. I don't know if this is a bluff. I don't know if the 49ers are just truly gunning for cost efficiency, or if they truly do have a situation here where they don't want to be spending as much money for the foreseeable future. I do know that they've spent a ton of money over the past, 5 years. I do know that their ROI wasn't exactly where they wanted it to be over the course of the 2024 calendar year or the 2024 fiscal year, with the spending on Trent Williams, the spending on Christian McCaffrey, and of course the spending on Brandon Ayuk. So as they try to rein it back, we will see exactly where the sweet spot lands. And I think that free agency might actually give us more fruitful initial clues than we've had so far from either Brock Purdy's camp or from the 49ers regarding this Purdy contract. How the 49ers spend in free agency is going to be mighty interesting, because so far we've seen them cut costs with Eric Armstead last year. We saw them ask Kyle Juszczyk to take a pay cut, and obviously he did take a pay cut. We saw the Deebo Samuel trade, which saved $17.5 million. And we've been talking a lot about the Brandon Ayuk potential trade, something that the 49ers have not ruled out. All of this, if everything is executed, and obviously the Ayuk trade hadn't been executed, plus the Javon Hargrave post-June 1st cut and likely non-re-signing. I don't think that they're going to be able to bring Javon Hargrave back. Maybe they will at a low price, but either way, that is scheduled to save him about $40 million. All of that business that I just listed If the Brandon Ayuk trade is also something that does come to fruition, which I still think is less likely than it is likely, but if all that comes to fruition, you're talking $190 million in cash spend savings for the 49ers over the course of the next 4 years or so, which is obviously a huge deal given the fact that Brock Purdy is predicted to be in line for a contract worth $200 to $300 million. That starts to really create a massive dent, or it starts to cover the entire value of that contract itself. But every single one of the moves that the 49ers have made so far, starting with last year's Armstead, Juszczyk, and then moving to Hargrave in this cycle, and Deebo Samuel, has been justifiable through the lens of cost efficiency. It's like, okay, the team may actually be able to get better through these moves because they're finding ways to be leaner and meaner with their money. So it's not until you cross the threshold of such low spending that you're actually making moves that are actively hurting the team and not just trimming fat. That's where you cross the threshold into, oh boy, this is a true cash issue that the 49ers are having. Maybe they need to pump some more cash into the football team. And there's no way that we can know exactly where on the spectrum they stand until we see them go through the biggest spending cycle of 2025, and that's free agency, which is going to begin on Monday. Monday is when the legal tampering period opens. Wednesday is when contracts can be finalized. That is the start of the new league year. I'm here for it because I feel that I'm learning on the fly this offseason with the 49ers definitely recalibrating their approach. Remember that a lot of the recalibration that the 49ers are undergoing has long been expected, because this is just the standard operating procedure across the NFL. The teams who have to pay their quarterback a big contract have to find a way to settle some of the compromises that they have to make with the rest of the roster. So, for example, the Philadelphia Eagles paid Jalen Hurts a couple years ago. Big deal, right? It's in between 50 and 60 million per year. But the Philadelphia Eagles are still spending big money on their offense. They've got A.J. Brown. He's already on his second contract with the team. Saquon Barkley is now on his second contract with the Philadelphia Eagles. Saquon today passed Christian McCaffrey for the number one spot in the NFL, highest paid running back of all time. The Eagles, just a year into that experiment, re-signed Saquon. He's now at $20.6 million per year. That's over $19 million per year for Christian McCaffrey. They've paid a lot to their offensive line. Devontae Smith, the wide receiver too, has gotten big money from the Philadelphia Eagles as well. So they're paying all those guys. They're paying their quarterback. The one area where the Eagles have drawn back the spending in order to keep both the cap spend and the cash spend sustainable is on the defense. They've rebuilt that side of the ball through the NFL draft, and they've done a really good job of it. A team like the Buffalo Bills, they've decided to rely heavily on Josh Allen. Congratulations to the NFL MVP. Wins that NFL MVP award despite losing Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, his two top receivers, his two top wideouts from the 2023 season. The Bills didn't bring them back. That obviously saved cash for the future. And, you know, maybe they leaned a little bit more into their entire play calling system. When you don't have two guys whom you might have relied on like crutches in years prior, you open some other stuff up, you open up some creativity. I'm sure that the 49ers are thinking about trying to pursue the same type of approach without Deebo Samuel, who I would argue was force-fed the football an awful lot, especially at key junctures in the 2024 season. And it didn't really work out for the 49ers as they went 6-11. You could also, the third example I've been bringing up is the Los Angeles Rams. And they have drawn back the defensive spending. They had the lowest defensive spend in the entire NFL this past season. Yet they still got good production out of some draftees. And it looks like they're going to be cutting some offensive spend too. The Matthew Stafford situation was really interesting because they had to give him a pay raise, but Cooper Kupp is going to be out the door for the Rams. They just traded Jonah Jackson away. That was a guard who they signed for $16 million a year. Was only with the team for 1 year, suffered an early injury, so he was the odd man out. They're off of that contract and really finding ways to get cheaper and more cost efficient across the roster. So here the 49ers are trying to do the same thing. And in the midst of all of it, they also have to find an agreement with their quarterback. So I would agree, people, to consume with caution with the way that you're grabbing your news, because there are going to be people trying to make entire YouTube shows treating some of this stuff as fact when it isn't even clear if it's a report. Like when I read something, and I could go back to it, that reads 49ers playing hardball with Purdy is very on brand. Starting your offers at $45 million a year is something. It's not even prefaced as a report. It's, not even professionally written. Everybody can use X the way that they want to use X, and they can use it just to spitball stuff, but it's the responsibility of the consumer. It's the responsibility of the reader to say, wait, let me be a little discerning here. Is this tweet saying that they only offered him $45 million a year, or is this guy just talking? And there's a chance that he's just talking. So at the very least, it should not be aggregated. It should not be treated as news. We should treat the substantive information that we have as news. And that is the cap versus cash situation. Something that John Lynch even alluded to last week. Something that Adam Schefter today corrected himself on. Again, Adam Schefter was on the Pat McAfee show. They're talking about paying Brock Purdy. And he's talking about the 49ers cap issues, and then he very quickly corrects himself and starts talking about cash issues. And those are two very different things. Let me illustrate. Let me go back to my contract projection for Brock Purdy. This came out on the Standard almost 2 months ago. So I can explain. The salary cap is something that you can work around in the NFL if you pay enough guaranteed cash in the form of a bonus, because the salary cap is not a hard limit in the league. Space carries over, unused space carries over from season to season. So you can push money into future years if you give money out as a signing bonus or as a guaranteed option bonus. So in the case of Brock Purdy and this contract, and in the case of all big 49ers contracts that they've awarded in recent years, they stretch out the cap hit into the future. So you can see that the salary cap hit of the contract that I proposed for Brock Purdy, which looks like the structure of the contracts the 49ers have given other mega deals recently to Nick Bosa, to Brandon Ayuk, Deommodore Lenoir, Deebo Samuel, Fred Warner. All these contracts look very similar to this one in terms of structure. This is worth over $60 million per year, 61, I believe. It's $305 million, 61 per year, yet the cap hit is only $15.1 million. So as you can see, if you're willing to pay the guaranteed money, you can duck under the salary cap. The 49ers have done this fantastically. The Philadelphia Eagles have done a really good job of doing this. The cap is not an issue if you have the cash, because guaranteed money is prorated. So you can give out a $70 million signing bonus, but by rule, only 15 mil or only 14 million of that signing bonus, 1/5 of it hits every single season. It is stretched out. I'm going to go back to the accordion. It is stretched out like an accordion over 5 seasons. So the 49ers have been running what we call a triple bonus structure on some of these really big contracts. So the signing bonus, first option bonus, second option bonus. You saw it with Brandon Ayuk's contract. I've been showing you how the 49ers have structured that one. The triple bonus structure allows the 49ers to stagger when the guaranteed money comes in. And with the guaranteed money staggered, the 49ers keep early cap hits low. So as you can tell, cap issues can be solved by a cash infusion. Cash spend issues are different. Tim Kawakami has been writing about this up on the San Francisco Standard. I'll probably write a little bit more about this up on the Standard coming up a little bit later this week, because it's one of my main takeaways coming out of the NFL Combine. And then over the course of this past week, it was really interesting to hear Adam Schefter correct his words on that today. This is at the fundamental level, starting at ownership. This is where it starts, right? You've got to pay the cash to even get to the cap issues. So where exactly are the 49ers on the cash spend willingness? That's going to be the issue that needs to be talked about regarding Brock Purdy. That's going to be the variable that determines how quickly this contract negotiation proceeds and where it might ultimately end up. It's not going to be some discussion over a vague tweet from from somebody who's probably not even connected to the 49ers, talking about a number that people don't even understand the significance of. I guarantee you that people who are going to be making entire shows about the $45 million number will not know the significance of APY, won't know contract structure. They won't know the significance of fully guaranteed money. It will just be a bunch of spitballing. It will be a bunch of conjecture. But I just want to stick with the data, and I want to stick with the facts. And the facts start with what John Lynch said last week. And he was talking about cash spend, and we're going to see how that develops. This is from Matt Mayoko today. This is just really interesting. It was the day that my Build the Roster piece came out. And he said, keep an eye out on a couple veteran receivers, 32 and 33 years old, respectively. Keenan Allen and Robert Woods. That's Brock Purdy theoretically pointing to Keenan Allen and Robert Woods, maybe two of his new teammates. So we'll see if the 49ers add one of those players. But I'm going to go to the Build Your Roster up on the standard because this is the flavor of today. And since we're talking about the possibility of adding Keenan Allen and Robert Woods, we can actually execute that possibility using our Build the Roster tool. Look at this cool animation that they made for the Build Your Roster tool. I'm going to hand this over to Mike, just a link to this, Mike, so you could toss it back into the description, because I think that this is what you should be wasting your time with. When we're done with this show, or even right now, you can open up the Build Your Roster tool. Remember, if you tweet your rosters at me, at Lombardi himself, I'm going to pick an Internet GM of the Year. You're going to have a chance to come on board onto the show. We'll give you a shout out in the San Francisco Standard. And we can even execute some of the moves that people are surmising may be possible for the 49ers. If you go to the receiver room where we've already traded Deebo Samuel, you can go to the drop-down menu and you can find our two guys. You can find Keenan Allen, if I could find him. There he is, Keenan Allen. And you could find Robert Woods. I don't see Robert Woods right now. Do I have him in there? We'll have Keenan Allen for now. Maybe I need to add Robert Woods to the list. Yeah, I need to add Robert Woods to the list. That is a little bit of an oversight on my part. So we found Keenan Allen. That's going to be up $13 million per year. I don't think Robert Woods is going to command a lot of money, though. Robert Woods might even end up in the budget veteran range, maybe a little bit more expensive than that, maybe about $2 million. But Robert Woods hadn't crossed over 400 yards receiving in several seasons. And he was last over 1,000 yards receiving like 5 or 6 seasons ago. It's Keenan Allen who's been the much more accomplished receiver as of late. He was with the Bears this past season. And Robert Woods was with the Houston Texans. But again, he hadn't put up big numbers in quite some time. So I would think that Allen would be a bigger splash for San Francisco. And what really would intrigue me is that Keenan Allen is a taller guy. Keenan Allen would be one of the lankier, taller receivers that Kyle Shanahan has brought in for real time with the 49ers ever since he started in 2017. And the reason that I find that to be particularly intriguing is because when I went to Iowa State, and I told this story a couple days ago, but we were talking in the context of the tight end position and throwing some fade passes, and I think we were talking about Teteroa McMillan, the big 6'5" receiver out of Arizona. But when I went to Iowa State, everybody told me you should see how well Brock Purdy throws the fade. Like the contested catch, jump ball, touch throw from Brock Purdy, I guess is a thing of legend at Iowa State. But Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers hardly ever run it. And then I thought, well, how often did they run it this past season or over the course of Purdy's 3 years at QB? And I thought back to the George Kittle catch in triple coverage, which was a late progression on the play. And that came against the New England Patriots. And obviously it was a great throw and it was a great catch. But I said, damn, 49ers don't really take advantage of their taller targets in the way that only the tall target would be able to win. And it's because they don't have a lot of tall wideout targets. And then George Kittle is George Kittle. He gets open in other ways. But Kyle Shanahan doesn't like calling that fade pass. Anyway, if you bring in, you bring in guys who can climb the ladder and make good catches, like on elevated passes. I think that you can open up a new dynamic of Brock Purdy's game that he used quite a bit I mean, the people at Iowa State, and I've seen the tape there too. It's definitely on film. But the people at Iowa State will glow about the touch that he can deliver on anticipatory throws, but throws that receivers climb the ladder for. And that's just one thing that we haven't seen all too much of with the 49ers, with the way they call plays. And I think in the red zone, it could be something that pays off for the 49ers. Anyway, that was just my thought when I saw that. And I think it was just Matt Mayoko spitballing some thoughts about wide receivers. I personally have talked about other guys. I've talked about Darius Slayton. You can see him here. Mike Williams is another taller receiver. Slayton's not. But Slayton, I'm thinking mid-tier receivers. And by a mid-tier receiver, I'm thinking somebody that's going to be in the $5 to $10 million range. I do feel that when we talk about caps issues and cash issues and cash spend, that's the ballpark area that the 49ers might be willing to go. Elijah Moore, another one of them. That's a smaller receiver, though. This is somebody that's going to be a little bit shiftier. So it all depends on what the 49ers are looking for. We cannot forget about Jacob Cowing and the first-year impression that he made, because I didn't think it was a bad one for San Francisco in 2024. Consume with caution. Let's see if you guys have any good questions here. It's been a busy day, hasn't it? Got the Saquon contract. We're talking about Brock Purdy to end things, to open the day today. And it seems like a long time ago I talked about Michael Mayer. I think, Mark Davis may not be willing to trade with the 49ers. He wasn't willing to trade with them back in 2018 when Khalil Mack was available, sent him to Chicago instead. So maybe Mark Davis will overrule Tom Brady and the rest of the ownership group and Will Spytek, the new GM, and Pete Carroll, the coach, and say, no, you can't trade with San Francisco. So maybe it'll be a moot point. But I think Michael Mayer would fit the 49ers really well. They're looking for a tight end too. I mean, I'm just talking about red zone targets, talking about tall guys. Michael Mayer is a tall target. He's 6'4". George Kittle, 6'4". So getting that second target at the tight end position who was taken seriously as a receiver can take this offense to another level. Keenan Allen, as we're talking about him, he's 6'2", and he can climb the ladder. We've seen Keenan Allen make a lot of those types of catches. So that would add a vertical, as far as height element to the 49ers offense that I don't think that they've really fully leveraged over the years. I still remember in 2017 when I first started covering the team, they didn't have a single receiver over 6 feet tall. I mean, Pierre Garçon might have been 6 flat, and that was it. It was small guys. Like Trent Taylor was getting a lot of play that year. Garçon obviously was the biggest body in the receiving room. They had a guy named Aldrick Robinson who was 5'11", and to me, it was like, damn, I mean, they don't have tall receivers. Kyle Shanahan's he wants the separation game. He wants the route running game. And I get it, they were talent deficient still at that time in 2017. But the biggest target by far was George Kittle. They didn't have the size on the outside. And it's going to be interesting if they could double up with somebody like Michael Mayer with that size at tight end, or if they do add somebody to the receiving room that does give them more height than they had in the past with Deebo Samuel. Tariq Owens is not short. Tariq Owens, let me get his firm height here, because we talked about Tariq Owens this morning. He's somebody who's been impressing the 49ers on their practice squad. He's 6'3", so Tariq Owens would give the 49ers, I knew he was at least 6'2". I know his dad was 6'3", maybe even 6'4", probably 6'3" with Terrell Owens, right? But Tariq Owens would also give San Francisco a little bit more vertical height, and I do think that could be the next step in the evolution of this offense. I talked this morning about the 49ers' chances of landing Drew Dahlman. Dahlman, the son of Chris Dahlman at the center position. I've been cautioning people that the 49ers like Jake Brendel more than the typical fan on social media does. But I've also said that, Kyle Shanahan has spent in the past on the center position, and I do think that play there has regressed. The problem with Dahlman is that he's not going to come cheap. I mean, you look here on the roster builder, I go to center. This is going to give you a good idea. Might give you some sticker shock. That cap hit might come in close to $20 million for Drew Dahlman. And on my cap sheet here, you can see that I've already spent a whole heck of a lot of money. I'm already in the red. It's already too expensive. Anyway, go and build your own rosters This is your chance. It's up on the San Francisco Standard to do a better job than Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. And it seems that this is an offseason where they're going to be facing some challenges and they're going to be facing some constraints. You could add Drew Dahlman to the roster. You can trade for Michael Mayer. You can sign DJ Reed. I think that would be a lot of fun. Everybody go and do that right now. The 49ers Build Your Own Roster is available. I wanted to give you a nice little nighttime show. We did 3 big ones today, so this was a lot of fun. This is a Brock Purdy update, and I'll leave you with this. Consume whatever comes out there with caution. Don't take this $45 million out of nowhere stuff all too seriously, because even if that is a number that is being tossed around in negotiations, it's just an APY number. You need to know structure. You need to know fully guaranteed money. You need to, I think, really be an intelligent consumer of what's out there, because otherwise you're just arguing over nothing on the internet. And the 49ers' success moving forward is going to be determined by the cash spend level that they pour in this team, the efficiency of the cash spend, and then the structure, which is related to that efficiency. And the structure, which I'm going to show you one more time, whatever they get done for Brock Purdy, the structure is going to determine, along with the cash spend, is going to determine how the 49ers can build a nice team around him. So that's how this needs to be looked at. Can't just breathlessly move on from one tweet, one unverified tweet to the next, because, I'm just trying to save you and your emotions over the course of the next few months. All right. Thanks for watching. Everybody have a great night.